These are the most unsettling communities on the internet, some so despicable they've been kicked off the web permanently. This is the disturbing online community's iceberg. Let's start at the tip. Level 1. Flat Earth Society. Today, most of the world believes the Earth is a giant spherical ball spinning around in space. But in ancient times, the Earth was believed to be a flat disk floating in the ocean. For the time, it explained how ships would sail off toward the horizon and often never return. Literal phrases like ends or edges of the Earth were used among ancient philosophers and poets like Homer. Aristotle was the first to say that the Earth was spherical. By the 15th century, it was accepted. Yet today, many believe he is wrong, and the number keeps growing thanks to groups like the Flat Earth Society, created by Samuel Shenton in 1956. The group's first goal was to convince children of school age that the Earth was flat before they were taught it was round in school. The argument was that if no one taught children they lived on a ball, they would never have considered it. When the first satellite entered space and sent images showing Earth as a sphere, Flat Earth believers insisted that the picture had been doctored. They published articles in scientific magazines arguing that the idea of a spinning globe was a conspiracy and that the moon landing had been faked. Global institutions and space agencies, particularly NASA, were all conspiring to conceal the truth. It's a message they go all out to spread. Flat Earth conventions are held worldwide, with speakers presenting on topics like Space is Fake and Fake Earth, with awards for the year's best Flat Earth-related videos. While you might not get an invitation to these events, Flat Earth online accounts across YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter have hundreds of thousands of followers. And they have supporters from the average Joe to high-profile individuals like basketball player Kyrie Irving to rapper B.O.B. One of their most significant proofs for them is the UN logo, which they believe is the actual Flat Earth map. They are clear that when you get to the edge of the Earth, you don't just fall off. Antarctica is alleged to be an ice wall barrier around the edge to stop anyone from slipping off, which is great news, I guess. r/neckbeard nests. Most people feel a healthy amount of disgust when they see an extremely cluttered, dirty living space, but not the subreddit neckbeard nests. Started in 2014 and with more than 300,000 members, the Reddit group is entirely made up of uploads of disturbing images of the messiest, dirtiest living spaces imaginable. The members have a fascination with the unhygienic and bleak lifestyle of extreme hoarders. The worse the mess, the better. Some of these are cluttered, but most are just plain unsanitary. One or two even have piles of water bottles filled with human urine lying around. Many people are disgusted at their lifestyle, and several posters expose their family, friends, and roommates. Yet, the Neckbeard Nests subreddit might be one of the more surprisingly wholesome corners of the internet.
No way, bro. No way. Look at it all. Look at it. Yo. Fucking hell, bro.
It's a lot of people owning up to whatever addictions, depressions, or mental issues that led them to their current situation. But there's also a lot of support and encouragement to clean up and look after themselves. When someone who used to post pictures of a very cluttered space shows their room in a better condition, you can almost see the love and the hugs in the comments as they give tips on how to start recovering. Level 2. Our Hot Wives. You might think of a hot wife as a compliment someone gets for having a very attractive partner, but online it means something completely different. Our Hot Wives is an online community for men who get off on cuckoldry and voyeurism. But this isn't your run-of-the-mill open marriage. These men not only fantasize about their wives being in sexual relationships with other men,
And started insisting a lot for me to get to know other people and go on dates.
they actively seek out partners for their wives.
Then my husband downloaded Tinder for me, chose the pictures, wrote my bio, and just asked me to start swiping. And if I liked anyone, I could go on a date.
And often share stories and photos. Sometimes the husband might watch or even partake in a threesome. Other times, hearing the details of what went down is all he needs.
Or even make a video for him to see how much fun I had.
They get off on the idea that other men desire their hot wife, but she always comes back to them. In the same way hot wives exist, there's also the far less common hot husband, where women enjoy seeing their husband with another woman. R/crippling alcoholism. Booze, juice, poison. Whatever you call it, alcoholic beverages have been in existence in society, and it isn't going anywhere. Even the Christian Bible talks about how Jesus turned water into wine 2,000 years ago. But like anything, alcohol is addictive, and some drinkers have a strong, often uncontrollable desire to drink at a level that harms the drinker. Most times it's pretty easy to tell alcoholics from non-alcoholics. It's really hard to miss the drunken walk or puking in a taxi.
What are you doing? Yo! What's going on?
But not all alcoholics are clear-cut. There's a subreddit group called Crippling Alcoholism, where members are all over the college scene of beer pong, keg stands, and underage drinking. These drinkers are all grown up. They work, pay their bills, and maintain good relationships with family and friends. On the outside, they appear to be living a great normal life in every way but one. They cannot function normally without alcohol. And as time goes on, they need more and more to get the effects they want. On the Reddit group, they're a bit more upfront about their drinking, casually mentioning knocking back 15 glasses of beer in one night. But even if they are not open about it, over time, the damage that comes with taking in so much alcohol eventually catches up. One Reddit user who lost his wife was shocked to find out that she had died from hepatitis A-induced liver failure. It was only after her death that he snooped around and found out that she essentially drank herself to death. While hepatitis A doesn't kill most of the time, provided you don't have an underlying liver condition, his wife's almost had no liver when she got ill, and 24 hours later, she was dead. He never even knew she had a drinking problem. Criminal fandoms. Criminals, bad guys, villains. You'd think the only place these people get a pass is in movies, but in the real world, many people love these criminals. After notorious cannibalistic serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer murdered and dismembered 17 men and boys, the flesh and bones of several bodies were found in his fridge. He was caught after one of his victims escaped, and the police found 74 snapshots of mutilated bodies in his bedside drawer that he posed them in sexually suggestive positions. And yet, after Dahmer was found guilty and locked up to pay for his crimes, he received hundreds of letters and even marriage proposals like he was a celebrity. And to several people, he was. People and fandoms that idolize criminals. Things went a step further when Hollywood made movies that focused on them. After Netflix released the true crime mover Monster: The Jeffrey Dahmer Story, people created fan clubs, cosplayed him on social media, and even manufactured merchandise. Some even got their children to dress as him for Halloween. Dahmer wasn't the only one. Serial killer Ted Bundy even had fans in the courtroom and received piles of fan mail, from marriage proposals to lewd photos. Others created Tumblr fan pages of crime scene photos, as well as photos and videos from these criminals. Things get incredibly crazy if the criminals are attractive, like Cameron Herron. In 2018, he was illegally street racing, reaching speeds of over 160 miles per hour in residential streets when he crashed into a mother who was pushing her daughter in a stroller, immediately killing them both. TikTok pages, Facebook groups, and Twitter accounts pleaded for his release, saying he was too cute to be in jail. After Cameron was sentenced to 24 years behind bars, the campaign kicked into gear. Some are making up excuses for him, petitioning for his release, and showing stills of him in court. Meanwhile, many of these people don't even know the name of the kid and mother whose life he carelessly ended. 4chan users. Launched in 2003, 4chan is an established image board website with 20 million visitors monthly and 900,000 new posts per day. Users don't need to sign up. Discussions happen anonymously, without moderation. It was created to discuss anime. Today, it has topics ranging from video games to adult content, and has also been linked to extreme political ideologies and criminal behavior. Several mass shooters have also posted manifestos on these platforms, along with links to live streams of their crimes. One of them was Peyton Gendron. He had learned about the Great Replacement conspiracy theory, a white nationalist theory he learned about when he started using 4chan in 2000. On May 14, 2022, he released a manifesto on 4chan before the mass shooting at a supermarket in Buffalo, New York, USA, where he targeted and killed 10 black shoppers. Another time, a 20-year-old Canadian named Stephen decided to take his own life by setting his room on fire and streaming it on 4chan. 4chan users encouraged him to go ahead. Some even complained that they couldn't see clearly. Autogynephilia forums. From voyeurism to exhibitionism, fetishes come in all shapes and sizes, but autogynephilia is a cross between a kink and a lifestyle. It's quite different from the run-of-the-mill kinks. It's when a man turns his body into the person or thing he is attracted to, usually a woman or feminine behaviors. These men get sexually aroused by the thought of themselves as females, so they either cross-dress or act like women. Like-minded men get together in autogynephile forums where treatments like hormone therapy and gender reassignment surgery are often suggested as a natural progression to autogynephilia. While some men see it as a psychological condition that they have learned to live with, others go the route of transitioning. Level 3. The Silk Road. In the 2nd century, the Silk Road was an intricate web of land and sea routes connecting several parts of Europe to Asia. It got its name from silk textiles, a major commodity in early China. Today, the Silk Road refers to a marketplace, but the last thing people there were buying was silk. The modern Silk Road was a darknet market that came into the limelight in 2011 after a tax agent found a post about the website on an online forum. Buyers and sellers could only reach this site using networks designed to conceal their identities, like Tor. They also made payments with Bitcoin. The Silk Road generated hundreds of millions of dollars selling products in over 200 categories. While drugs were the best-selling items, illegal commodities like guns, hacking services, and fake identities were also sold. For years, the FBI tried to bring down the illegal site. It was probably 2 years before they identified the creator, Ross William Ulbricht. They seized his laptop and shut down the site. Ulbricht would spend the rest of his life in prison for trafficking, computer hacking, and money laundering. Over the years, different versions of the Silk Road have popped up: Alphabay, Dream Market, and Hydra. Each one gets shut down, but they only keep finding more sophisticated ways to cover their tracks. Docspin. Docspin was a document sharing and publishing website where people were encouraged to contribute valuable personal data of a person and their family members. It wasn't just names, addresses, and phone numbers. It exposed things like social security numbers, bank routing information, and credit card information. When it started in May 2011, some thought Docspin would go after deserving political targets like Anonymous, but that wasn't the case. Docspin quickly became one of the most malicious and notorious sites on the dark web. Just about anyone could get doxxed on Docspin. The most common were irate kids seeking revenge on Xbox Live opponents. They would get a target's IP address, track down their data and personal information, and share it to the site. Once they have this information, they can do anything, like make up scenarios and swat them. YouTuber Kerry Holtzman was a victim of one of these swatting incidents. He ran a channel repairing and modding computers. After he got doxxed on Doxbin, Kerry was swatted and got threatening calls on his phone at all hours.
Then I'm gonna say, good.
What's
I'm
in it
glad
for
that
me?
there's.
What do I get? Apart from the interruption of my day,
What do you want?
I want an apology. I want you to acknowledge what you did was a complete waste of taxpayer time and money, and there
How
should
was
be
it
a
a waste of
process.
time?
There should be a process to verify these calls.
They told him they would hire a hitman or order drugs using his address so he would be arrested for drug possession. A month later, true to their word, a vial of drugs was delivered at his home. Unfortunately, Kerry had mentioned it to the police and handed the vial over to them. In 2014, the FBI and Europol launched a joint operation to shut down several illegal sites on the dark web, including Doxbin. But like many of these sites, seizing a domain doesn't put an end to it. Doxbin is still alive and kicking. In 2019, 32 journalists who wrote opposing views on neo-Nazis were doxxed on Doxbin and targeted. Many received threats and were swatted by the police. Bareback exchange. In the 1980s, HIV and AIDS were first identified in the United States. Fear about the deadly disease spread, and the images of people dying rapidly and horribly didn't help. And people diagnosed with the disease were largely ostracized and stigmatized, which was what made it so iconic when Diana shook hands with people infected with the disease in the 90s. Fast forward to the 2000s, and some people were doing much more than shaking hands. The group most affected by the disease were gay and bisexual men. Rather than face social death, some of them got together and created a community called the Bareback Exchange. They had been living with the virus for decades and didn't care anymore. Instead, they saw sharing the virus as a way to one-up the virus. Gay men who had the virus would have unprotected sex with those who didn't at bareback parties. For them, transmitting the disease was seen as a gift, a way to connect with one another. That might sound romantic, but the infected people don't always tell their partners that they have HIV. It's only when the other person starts experiencing symptoms and goes in for tests that they realize they now have an incurable disease.
6 days later from that wonderful, wonderful first date, I actually ended up in the hospital with unexplained symptoms that now turn out to be HIV related.
One of them was Daryl Rowe, who infected 5 men he had unprotected sex with.
Had I had unprotected sex with him, then I can say, shit, you made a mistake.
Sabotaged the condoms of another 5.
I've ripped the condom. I hope you felt my semen inside you.
After they had sex, Daryl would then send mocking messages to them, revealing his HIV status to them. This sociopath was sentenced to life in prison. Twin Flames Universe. The idea of twin flames started after English novelist Marie Corelli in her 1886 novel A Romance of Two Worlds. The idea of two people who have a divine connection and were destined for each other. People have no control over who their twin flame is, and they just have to accept whoever the person turns out to be. One Michigan couple, Jeffrey Devine and Megan Plant, also known as Shalia Ayan, was determined to help people find their twin flames. Calling themselves Father Christ and Mother Christ, they released hundreds of online videos about twin flame relationships on blogs, Facebook pages, and YouTube channels. They had thousands of people believing their teachings. In 2017, they founded Twin Flames Universe, and for $4,444, they could access more exclusive videos and one-on-one mind alignment coaching with the founders to help them find their twin flame. Once they jumped through hoops and brought more people to buy the course, Jeff and Shalia gave them the name of their twin flame, and once a member had it, they had to make that union happen. Often they ended up getting blocked or even taken to court for stalking. In 2014, Ryan Gosling filed a restraining order against one member who had been told he was her twin flame. That's not the craziest thing someone following their cult has done. Jeff and Shalia insisted there can only be a masculine and a feminine, but sometimes they assigned a same-sex person as the twin flame. Some cult members have undergone gender reassignment surgery and changed their names so that they can become the gender the cult leaders felt they should be. Several people who have left the group have described it as a cult, even though the group has been heavily criticized and is now the subject of the Amazon Prime documentary Desperately Seeking Soulmate Escaping Twin Flames Universe, and the true crime Netflix documentary Escaping Twin Flames. People are still trooping in through their doors, hoping to swipe their credit cards for a chance to be told who their twin flame is. Real Vampire Community, RVC. For most of us, vampires are fictional creatures that have no reflections, feed on blood, and can be repelled with garlic. But what if I told you these creatures are real and live among us? Enter real-life vampires. They might not be allergic to garlic, but they might live normal lives, working jobs and dealing with daily commutes. But they are vampires. These vampires come together to form communities both online and offline. The rules and rituals aren't the same in all vampire communities. Some believe that if they do not feed or spend too long in the sun, they will become ill or even die, while others do not. Some feed on blood from consenting donors like partners and loved ones, while others feed on psychic energy and sex. But the vampire community is very low-key about their beliefs out of fear of retribution or being judged. Even though they have a love-hate relationship with vampire movies like Twilight, they believe that Hollywood's enduring romance with vampire movies and series shows the humanity of vampires, and that one day they could truly be accepted and live publicly as vampires. Level 4. Otaku Culture and Obsession. One Punch Man, Jujutsu Kaisen, and One Piece are just a few of the anime that have hit the most liked status on Netflix. Yet, while anime and manga might be popular and trendy today, back in the 1960s when they first hit the Japanese screens, their fandom was largely people recognized as freaks, geeks, and nerds. As they grew older, some of these fans became increasingly involved with anime and manga, to the point where many became social outcasts and more obsessed with the fantasy world of anime, manga, and even delving into hentai. All across Tokyo, Japan, otakus have large collections of manga and videos, but no one thought they were a danger to society till July 23, 1989, when police arrested a 27-year-old Japanese man called Tsutomu Miyazaki after a father saw him taking photos of his nude-age daughter. She was the lucky one. Miyazaki was later linked to the little girl. He admitted and murdered 4 girls. The police found over 5,000 videotapes of anime films in his house. Some speculated that being an otaku had driven Miyazaki to murder. Suddenly, otakus became a negative stereotype of compulsive, antisocial behavior. Law enforcement began to suspect otakus of sex crimes. During his trial, Miyazaki spoke irrationally and spent his time sketching a cartoon character called Ratman. He claimed Ratman was the alter ego that had killed the girls. Miyazaki and the Ratman were executed by hanging in 2008. Since then, the stigma around otaku has reduced as more and more people publicly self-identify as otakus, including a former Prime Minister of Japan. It's now seen as just a regular old hobby. Columbiners. April 20th, 1999 was supposed to have been a regular school day at Columbine High School in Colorado, U.S. But the day would end in terror after what was, at the time, the deadliest high school shooting in the U.S. After a year of planning, 12th grade students Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold had shown up to the school armed with guns and bombs. They would murder 12 students and one teacher and injure many others before turning their guns on themselves. At the time, it was the deadliest high school shooting in U.S. history. They left behind several journal writings and home videos. In the videos, the shooters bragged about how many they would kill, showing off their guns while referencing the massacre. Figuring out how they would hide the weapons in their clothes, counting down to the massacre, and making goodbye messages to their families. After the shooting, a fandom that called itself the Columbiners emerged. They took to YouTube, making tributes to the shooters before moving to Tumblr when YouTube cracked down on them. Today, they're on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Many of them weren't even alive when the shooting happened. They've made up a story romanticizing Harris and Klebold as victims of the system. A pair of lonely outcasts and a clique of misfits called the Trenchcoat Mafia, who had taken on the jocks to avenge years of bullying, even though they were never outcasts and ridiculed nobodies. While some Columbiners stuck with creating these warped stories, others took things a step further. 23-year-old Lindsay Sovanarath was so obsessed with high school shootings and the Columbine High School massacre in particular that she had a blog with the headline School Shooter Chic. There, she would put up memes about the shooters and eventually connect with 19-year-old James Gamble, another fan of school shootings, and the two got talking about doing a mass killing of their own.
Another place he mentioned was a library. I thought that shooting up a library would send the wrong message, and I just didn't want to copy Columbine too closely, so I didn't really go with that one.
But the police got wind of their plans and arrested her as she flew into Canada from the U.S. to meet James. She was sentenced to life with parole. As for James, he killed himself when he saw police outside his parents' home. But not all these shootings get thwarted. The Columbine shooting inspired more than 50 mass shootings in several countries, including the US, Finland, Brazil, and the Netherlands. And each of these shooters gets their very own fans who go on to talk about them like victims, ignoring the people's lives they ended. Looksmax.org. Many times when a conversation about beauty standards and the pressure to fit in comes up, the target is usually women. Then, Looksmax.org happened and leveled the playing field. It was a site that told you what was wrong with your looks for a price. Men, mostly incels, uploaded their pictures, and anonymous members rate their features based on how far they were from the perfect, attractive man who was buff with chiseled jaws, pouty lips, and hunter's eyes. The tips came in two types: regular advice like a new hairstyle or using moisturizers. Other times they were vicious with recommendations to go under the knife or even end their lives. One of the most famous figures championing this switch from rejects to gods in the early 2010s was Russian-born amateur bodybuilder Aziz Sergeyevich Shavarashan, popularly known as Ziz. He was very popular, amassing tens of thousands of followers. While Ziz never admitted to using steroids, his brother Saeed was pretty open about it. Many people pointed to steroid use as the culprit when, at 22, Ziz died from an undiagnosed heart condition. For a short time, Looksmaxing died down, but picked up again in the 2020s on sites like TikTok and Reddit, attracting a new demographic of teenage boys. One of the most popular buzzwords is mewing, a tongue exercise that allegedly squares up the jaw. Those who haven't seen the results they wanted have gone under the knife to get chin surgeries. The 10,000-pound surgery involves sawing a part of the mouth and a titanium plate. Most times, one operation is not enough, and they fall into the cycle of getting more and more work done, like the sad case of James Sapphire, popularly known as Curly Head James. At 14, he had posted a picture of himself on Looksmax and asked for a rating on his eyes. The response James got was downright brutal. In the following years, James fell into the rabbit hole, chasing more and more procedures, till he became a caricature of his former self. R9K. The R9K board on the forum website 4chan started as an experiment to see what would happen if a board was left to do its own thing. It turns out it could, and members of the board who were loners and hermits shared stories of socially awkward situations they were involved in. The board became popular with incels. They resented women and blamed many for their problems. Like many incels, members of R9K are also prone to violence. On September 30th, 2015, an ominous message on the board warned people about going to school. Members of the forum supported him, even advising him to bring a knife, target an all-girls school, and the best weapon to carry. The next day, Christopher Harper Mercer showed up at the Umpqua Community College campus in Oregon, United States. He shot and killed 9 people and injured 8 others before turning the gun on himself. He left a 6-page typewritten manifesto complaining about being a lonely virgin. Christopher also critiqued the methods of other mass killers and praised the misogynist incel behind the 2014 Isla Vista killings. 4chan's Pole Board Crusaders. By now, we already know 4chan is pretty much the Wild West of the internet. But in 2011, even 4chan's founder created a board just for overtly xenophobic and racist comments and memes. It was called Pol, short for politically incorrect, like a containment board for all things political. In time, the board became popular with far-right movements and quickly became the most active board on the site. There have been many political incidents linked to the Pol board. In 2016, Google introduced a program to censor abusive language like the N-word. Users of the Pol board created a secret code using popular words like Google, Skype, and Skittle to replace the slurs. Skittle meant Muslims, Google replaced the N-word, and Skype referred to Jews. The plan was to get so many using the word that Google would censor its name. In 2017, a user called Q began posting what would become the QAnon conspiracy theory on the board. They also organized the It's Okay to Be White campaign, putting up posters on streets in the United States, Canada, Australia, and the United Kingdom. Their mission is pretty much to drive up negative attitudes towards the left, minorities, and progressive liberals, anti-Semitism, and racism. Level 5. Guinea pigging community. Back in the day, trials were performed on prisoners and soldiers, testing dangerous chemicals on them and exposing them to radiation. But it was only outlawed in the 1970s. Then came the guinea pigs.
Can't coordinate anything. You can hardly walk, and your mind is going so many different directions.
For every medicine sold in a drugstore, thousands have volunteered at clinical trials to test if they are safe and effective for humans. And it's not just medical. Using people for experiments on military vehicles and escape hatches also happened to check if pilots and army personnel would survive different situations. These research subjects, affectionately called guinea pigs, don't do it because they're selflessly trying to help society. Many college students have signed up for research and experiments in exchange for extra credit or some pocket money. But what was just an option for cash-strapped students is now a source of income for others. Some people jump from trial to earn as much money as possible quickly. Usually, the riskier and more invasive procedures bring in the best bucks, so they sign up taking drugs they don't need to get some quick cash. Because pharmaceutical companies need guinea pigs for their tests, they get away with many unethical things, like trying to use dying people for tests. But with desperate guinea pigs out there, there's no stopping them. Stormfront. When white supremacist and former Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, Don Black, was arrested for plotting to overthrow a Caribbean island government, He was sentenced to 3 years behind bars, but Black spent his time in jail productively learning to code. When Black got out, he set up Stormfront in 1995. It was the first ever hate site on the World Wide Web to be associated with white supremacy. The logo was a Celtic cross encircled by the phrase "White Pride Worldwide." The symbol has since gone on to be a popular white supremacist symbol. The site has more than 300,000 members who get to see links to instigating racially themed news articles like "Man Stabs Elderly Woman." They also got information on upcoming racist events and could share their views. News got out that Doug Hanks, a candidate for the City Council of Charlotte, North Carolina, had posted more than 4,000 comments over 3 years, including one which he described black people as rabid beasts. Hank claimed he had made it up, but nobody was buying it, forcing him to withdraw his nomination. They have also been linked to over 100 murders. Stormfront user Anders Behring Breivik murdered 77 and injured over 200 people in 2011 to save Norway and Western Europe from a Muslim takeover. He never showed any remorse. Another was Wade Michael Page, a former U.S. Army veteran who had ties to several white supremacist and neo-Nazi groups. He also joined the white power music scene. In 2012, Wade brought a gun and went to a Sikh temple in Wisconsin where he would kill 7 people and injure 3 others before turning the gun on himself. BIID, Body Integrity Identity Disorder Forums. Body integrity identity disorder is a rare mental disorder where people have an obsessive need to amputate a limb or to become paralyzed, blind, or deaf. They are convinced that's the only way to become their true selves. There are BIID forums where people who suffer from this disorder get to interact with like-minded people. While many are okay with just talking things out, some pretend to be amputees by using prosthesis or wheelchairs to get around like they actually lost a limb. But others take it a step further. There are a lot of discussions encouraging self-mutilation and procedures to get around to it. From advice to allow a train to run over a limb to planning dangerous workplace accidents, there are even suggestions to damage the limb so severely that surgeons will have to amputate it. But because the disease is so rare and largely undiagnosed, it's hard to say just how many follow through. The first documented incident was in September 1968, when renowned cricket historian Roland Bowen amputated his right leg in his bathroom. Years earlier, he had also lost a finger but had made it out as an accident. Another was Jewel Shuping. She had always felt she was supposed to be blind and used a home cleaning fluid to get the job done. The incident that put BIID in the limelight was in the late 1990s after a surgeon amputated the limbs of 2 seemingly healthy people who had wanted them taken off. But it is still not a recognized condition. Kiwi farms. If there's one online community you never want to find yourself as a topic on, it's kiwi farms. It was founded by former 8chan administrator Joshua Connor Moon in 2013. Then it was called CWCK Forums and was initially launched to troll and harass the infamous webcomic artist behind the Sonichu comic, Christine Weston Chandler. In 2014, the forum became Kiwi Farms, and they went from tailing Chandler to targeting anyone that didn't fit their ideal. Minorities, women, LGBT people, people with disabilities, you name it. Once they zeroed in on someone, they would troll them as a group, harassing them by doxing and swatting for months, even years. Their main aim was to drive the targets to end their lives. 3 times, they succeeded. A Canadian woman, Julie Terryberry, ended her life after Kiwi Farms users harassed her. American video game developer Chloe Segal set herself on fire after being targeted for 5 years. Nier, a Japan-based software developer, was also a victim. In 2021, the group set its sights on Twitch streamer Clara Sorrenti, better known as Keffals, after she discussed trans rights on her platform. They doxed her, made death threats, harassed her friends and family, and leaked explicit photos of her. Sorrenti was once arrested and questioned for 10 hours after they used her identity to send threatening emails to politicians. Even when she tried to get away and move into a hotel, they tracked her down, hacked her Uber account, and sent hundreds of dollars in orders to her. Another time, she fled the country for Europe, and a stalker showed up outside her apartment building with a handwritten note filled with transphobic slurs. Sorrenti fought back and launched a social media campaign against Kiwi Farms. She pressured the company that hosts the forum, Cloudflare, and Kiwi Farms was blocked from using its services. That decision didn't sit well with everyone. Nonetheless, the site still lurks around, and members remain fired up for their next victim. Level 6. Joy of Satan. Joy of Satan Ministries is a pseudo-satanic cult created in the early 2000s by Maxine Dietrich, whose real name is Andrea Harrington. Members believe Satan is the true father and creator god of humanity. While the Joy of Satan cult is rooted in Satanism, like many other Satanist groups, they also have very deep connections to neo-beliefs and white supremacists. That has made them rejected by the satanic community who don't believe politics has a place in Satanism. Many of them believe that it is a manipulative movement that doesn't teach about Satan or demons. They have also accused Maxine of plagiarizing books from several authors and selling them on her site. Who are they sold to? The idea of a satanic cult is very appealing to easily influenced and vulnerable youth and teenagers. And other satanic cults believe they target the teenagers to recruit them into a faction of the National Socialist movement that was created by Maxine's husband, Clifford Harrington. He was the former leader of the NSM before he had been kicked out for dating a Satanist. Cannibal Cafe. Cannibal Cafe was an online cannibalism forum where people who had a cannibal fetish could explicitly imagine eating or being eaten by other people. However, it was all fantasy, and there was an explicit warning to those who couldn't separate fantasy from reality to stay out. But that warning wasn't enough to keep Armin Meiwes out. The German man had a fantasy that he wanted to play out. He made several attempts to find someone he could fulfill his fantasy of eating human flesh. In 2021, he found his man, fellow German Bernd Brandes. While Armin wanted to eat, Bernd wanted to be eaten. It was a match made in cannibal heaven. Armin invited Bernd to his home on March 9, 2001. After taking some sleeping pills, painkillers, and alcohol, he asked Armin to bite off his penis. When that didn't work, they cut it off and cooked it, but it burned and they gave it to Armin's dog. Then, Bernd was put in the bath to bleed out while Armin read a Star Trek book. When Bernd was unconscious, Armin kissed him on the head and killed him.
Then I took the knife, grasped it in my hand, and after hesitating some more, I cut his throat with it.
After that, Armin hung the body on meat hooks, cut it into pieces, and stored them in his freezer. The entire gruesome event was recorded on a 2-hour videotape Armin set up. He would eat 20 kilograms of Bernd's body over the next 10 months. Then, he returned to the Cannibal Cafe forum and shared the horrific experience with the group while asking for more volunteers. Instead, one of the members of the forum called the police. Armin was first tried for manslaughter and given an 8-year sentence, but the charge was later upped to murder, and he was sentenced to life. In a curious twist, Armin is now a vegetarian. While the Cannibal Cafe forum isn't functioning anymore, it can still be accessed through the Wayback Machine. O9A, Order of Nine Angels Forums. Order of Nine Angels is a secret religious movement that combines elements of occultism, Satanism, and mysticism. Sometimes referred to by O9A, they believe society needs to be overthrown by violence and encourage their followers to engage in extreme violence like murder and rape. The cult started in the 1960s, sharing their far-right propaganda and neo inspired violence through books. Today, they're much more accessible to young men thanks to the internet and social media, posing at the sites of notorious rapes and murders to celebrate the perpetrators. But that wasn't all. In November 2020, a 14-year-old boy influenced by teachings from 09A started writing a warfare manual to target several areas in Durham. He even tried to obtain a chemical used in terrorist bombings. When police caught up with him, the teen became the youngest person in Britain to be convicted of plotting a terror attack. Another member of the 09A planned for much worse. In 2020, Army Private Ethan Meltzer leaked sensitive intelligence about his unit's planned deployment overseas to his 09A affiliates. It included their locations, movement, and security plans. Meltzer planned for them to hand this information over to jihadi terrorists so he and his unit could get ambushed and killed. Ethan wanted the ambush to provoke another war. He would have gotten away with it too if he hadn't also been handing the information over to an undercover FBI agent. After Meltzer was exposed, several other active members of the U.S. military were also discovered to be members of the 09A. The group has also influenced several neo-Nazi extremist groups, like the US-based Atomwaffen Division that's been linked to 5 murders, as well as the Sonnenkrieg Division, which was banned as a terrorist organization in the UK. The Nth Room. When news broke about a cybersex blackmail crime scandal going on in 2020, South Korean women were outraged and doing mass protests. Young women were contacted online through social media apps like Twitter and sold dreams of becoming models. They were told to download the encrypted messaging app Telegram after giving their bank account information, address, and phone number. They were coerced into taking pictures to kickstart their modeling careers. Once they sent those pictures, the victims would be blackmailed to take explicit and sometimes violent videos of themselves doing things like the words slave into their skin with knives, drinking water from toilet bowls, and inserting insects into their private parts. The pictures and videos ended up in a Telegram group called the Nth Room. The Nth Room was the name of 8 Telegram chat rooms created in 2018. There, the sexually exploitative pornography they had gotten from the victims was shared for a price. When the police stopped them in 2020, 260,000 anonymous cryptocurrency transactions would be linked to 60,000 users who would pay to get into the rooms and for videos. They could even make sick requests for what they wanted to see for an added fee. There were also copycat groups like the Doctor's Room created by Cho Jubin. They operated the chat rooms with their accomplices, distributors, and promoters. While 260 of these sickos would be arrested, very few of the people who paid for those sick videos were identified or found.